I'd like to kind of go back to when you were first in Washington. I think 1993, you were a special advisor to President Clinton at that point on NAFTA, and kind of looking through, because that's around the same time that we were seeing inflation at levels like this. You have to go back to 1990 to see inflation like this. When you look at inflation, when you look at the economy and kind of all that you've seen over this time period, what do you think the odds of the Build Back Better bill getting passed are? What do you think it would mean for the economy?
Well, I think it's, first of all, let me just say, I think the infrastructure bill that was passed and now going to be signed by the president will help, obviously, the comeback. There's been debate now for over a year on the Build Back Better part of this in the sense of the social piece. I think the inflation is real. It's a great concern by everyone. So I think it's going to be a very tough road to think that anything the size of what's been proposed will pass both the House and the Senate in the end. I think the House is waiting to see what the CBO scores that bill that's been presented to them. That's supposed to come out next week. That'll have a major impact on its ability to pass the House and the likelihood of anything passing the Senate. They've got to do the debt ceiling, which is also a major issue that has to be resolved by the end of the year. So they've got a lot on their plate, and I think it's going to be highly unlikely that you see the size of the bill that's been talked about actually get passed at the end and signed by the president. But I think it's important that they do take action because there's real concern out there in America that relief has to continue to be given by the government.
Senator Manchin, there's some new reporting out this morning that suggests Senator Manchin is looking at this and saying he would agree to a lot of these social spending programs, but only if there are some pretty strict caps that are put on it in terms of income levels, of making sure that people who make above a certain amount are not getting the same as people below that amount. It sounds like you're kind of in his camp of thinking that something has to be done, but only for people who really, really need the help.
I've been a big believer that means testing is really important, and I've always been surprised that Democrats haven't embraced that, to be frank with you. Those of us who have done quite well over the economy over the last 25, 30 years should not get the sort of relief and help that other Americans need and they should get. So I think he's tapped into what I think most people, and even those who are very successful, believe, that as you look to try to solve the real problems, you ought to focus on the people who have the real pain and need, and not necessarily those of us who have done pretty well over the last number of years by virtue of whether it's investments, the increase in opportunities that have been out there. So I think he's tapped into something that the American people, I think, feel very strongly about.
But what can you tell us about the economy just from the perspective of Wells Fargo? What are you seeing in terms of savings, in terms of credit card spending, how people are doing, and is there a big dichotomy between the haves and the have-nots?
There is, and it's been there for a very long time, obviously. We are seeing people beginning to come back into the economy, whether it's the job market, spending. We're coming upon the holidays. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, it's not going to roar back to the 2019 levels, but we're seeing progress. You're going to have GDP growth. We estimated about 5.5 this year. Next year, probably 4. But there are a lot of headwinds, as you've mentioned, not only inflation. You look at the disruption in the supply chain, the labor market, the tremendous increase in the labor market cost of the last number of months, and the overriding concern around COVID as we get to the winter months, whether there'll be a resurgence or a new variant. And so those all kind of give pause to people and concern as we go forward. But overall, we have a very strong economy and a very diverse economy. And I know we talk negatively quite a bit, and inflation is rising, and that's a concern. It's not back to some of the levels that those of us who are a little older have seen. And we've seemed to have gotten used to very low interest rates. Higher interest rates doesn't mean that the economy is going to crater or the concern that some people have. The Fed's got to move forward. The leadership of the Fed is another issue, another concern of the market, I think. What is there going to be a change? How will they lay out the tapering program and the higher interest rates? And then you've got, again, not only the leadership, you've got a number of vacancies on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. Governor Quarles just resigned. So the president's got to put forward, and then they have to go through the Senate process, which is, once again, as we all know, rather difficult to get anything through.